revenge of it, but it's that Squawkabilly EX, a card that wouldn't necessarily jump out to you when you're looking at this deck as an archetype.
Yeah. I've always wondered if more players were going to bring Squawkabilly EX to this tournament. It is a liability. It's a low HP Pokemon EX, but it just offers you such a huge consistency boost. Because if you have a bad hand, but you have like a Nest Ball or a Battle VIP Pass, you can just grab it, throw away your hand, get 6 new cards, and it just increases the number of games where you can actually play. The question is it worth the downside of potentially giving up a game-losing 2-prize knockout later on?
So both decks using this Lost Zone engine, of course, Jesper paired with this Giratina V-Star. The ideas are the same. Sableye, Kamerman, what is going to be the navigation edge for both players when it comes to this matchup of Lost Zone decks going head-to-head?
Yeah, this is always an interesting one. I feel like a lot of the time it's a race to who attacks with Sableye first. You have this kind of dance with Manaphy stopping the Radiant Greninja from getting a double knockout with Moonlight Shuriken. And, I don't know, we've seen a lot of Lost Zone kind of mirror matches. The question is, does Giratina ever actually come into the fray here? Can you just get away with attacking with only Cramorant, Sableye, Radiant Greninja, or do you have to use Giratina at any point? It can be awkward sometimes. Giratina V-Star isn't great against 1-prize Pokemon since you have to keep throwing away your energy. You can shred with the Giratina V, that's fine, but we'll see how Jesper wants to approach this one. It looks like he will be going first with that Radiant Greninja.
And this hand is not very good at all. Concealed cards, this might be a very big bailout indeed. Do we see something like a basic Pokemon off this? There is a Comfey, and that was needed there. Not a lot else going on in this hand.
Yep. So we'll see if this goes into a Battle VIP Pass. That's got to be the card you're looking for.
Wow, tough choice. Both of those really not doing much. Is that Grass Energy and the Path to the Peak. I feel like in this matchup specifically, Path is just not a card that you need, and I think Jesper making the correct decision throwing that away, but especially in this mirror match, when you are being threatened by turn 1 Spit Innocently, what do you deal with if your only Comfey in your entire board gets knocked out by that Cramorant on turn 1? How can you even respond to that? And it looks like Jesper really prioritizing keeping this up, benching the Cramorant, and retreating into Radiant Greninja, meaning that something like an Escape Rope will make sure, even with that, this Comfey is there. And look at that, Brennan with the Colress's Experiment right away. 5 cards off the top of the deck. A little bit of a tough choice here. What do you prioritize now? Usually, switching cards are just there to use the Comfey's flower selecting ability, but how does Switch Card become a card that's essentially a level up than a switching card in this matchup, Kyle?
Yeah, sometimes the healing 30 damage can make a big deal in these kind of matchups where you're kind of spreading damage counters around. With Sableye, in an ideal world, you would save a lot of them for the perfect moment to be able to heal. It's kind of like playing a potion, right? But a lot of the time, you just don't have the luxury of doing that. You just have to use your switch cards early on to use flower selecting. It's nice when it comes up, but it's really hard to actually conserve those for the right moments.
First flower selecting used. Looks like deciding to keep the Mirage Gate. Lost Vacuum will hit the Lost Zone. As our second flower selecting, what are the 2 cards? Dragonite and the Water Energy. Now, it is always important to keep those Water Energy available. You want to have access to them. There is 5 in this deck, though, since it is the Kyogre build, so getting rid of 1 doesn't seem too bad. And now with this Dragonite, it means that the Forest Seal Stone can be used. And with how slow of a start your opponent had, do you think you just use this now and maybe grab Cramorant to attack? Is there really a better option that you could see yourself using?
Oh, well, Brennan's going to throw down the Dragonite V right away. Does get the Forest Seal Stone. I have to imagine, well, I mean, now that I'm looking at it, there's 4 in the Lost Zone already. I don't think it's worth trying to go for like a turbo turn 1 Mirage Gate attack, because I don't even think you have a great attack to go with that's much better than just using Cramorant. Like if you can go Escape Rope into Cramorant, you'll get a knockout. But I mean, this is a great start from Brennan. You already got 4 in the Lost Zone. This is, kind of the turbo variant where you can use Lost Vacuums and things like that to get up to 7 sometimes on the first turn and start using Mirage Gate. But yeah, looks like, yeah.
Just make sure we're not skipping steps. It will be the Battle VIP Pass, and Brennan did find 2 of those switch card off the Chorus's experiment, so the second one could be used, bringing this Kamerman into the active, and that lost Provision's ability, allowing it to attack for free. Spit Innocently can at least put some pressure on Greninja, and even though it's not taking the knockout, leaving the damage there is still solid, and you don't give your opponent that opportunity to bring Comfey into the active for free to use Flower Selecting.
Yep, so just going to see the Spit Innocently for 110 on the Radiant Greninja this turn, and the Manaphy comes down as well. You know, it's not ideal. You don't actually get a knockout, but this does set you up later for Sableye to just drop the final 2 damage counters, and you'll end up getting a multi-prize turn at some point, probably.
This needs to find some good cards, and one of them is that switch card. So can move this Greninja out of the active spot, heal it down to 80. The way the math still works out is something like a Lost Mine can knock out this Greninja and one of the 70 HP Pokemon. That is something to note later on. And wow, Jesper understands I'm not taking a tie anyways. And this is a smart choice from Jesper because these Lost Zone mirror matches, they are time consuming, and tying in this situation, I mean, we kept talking about it, but it's not what you want to do at all.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't going to get an attack off that turn. The game's basically over. No need to waste time. Maybe there's like a less than 1% chance you ever win that game. Much rather, that's an excellent decision. You can recognize, I'm probably not going to win this game. It's not worth spending the next 15 minutes to find out whether I'm going to really win or not. So yeah, love to see it.
Smart play indeed. It's smart plays of a world champion, so doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, Jesper's played all kinds of different decks, but I know you were talking to him, and you have a story about some decks he's selecting. You wanna go ahead and share this one?
Yeah, last night I ran into him, and he was between 2 different decks. There's the one he ended up playing, which is this deck, which is good. He made the right call. The other one he showed me was a Lost Zone deck with Wo-Chien EX and 2 Luxray.
Right? Or
no, just the one that you can play down when you're losing.
Oh!
And like reversal energy, and just, I don't know what was going on there. But I looked at it and I said, you know, I've never played a game with this deck, so I don't know if it's any good, but just play Giratina.
It seems to be paying off so far. It's down 1-0 in this set. Not very many highlights at this point. You can kind of see a little bit of frustration, but I mean, I said this before, but I feel like every time you play a deck with the Comfey, with the Lost Zone engine, you should sign a waiver that says, I understand that I can brick it. And look at these price
Double
cards.
Battle VIP Pass and Double Force Sealstone for Brennan. We'll see if he draws into a Battle VIP Pass. And this is something I was curious about. Do you decide to go first or second in this matchup? And Jesper actually decides to go second. So really hoping that he gets a turn 1 attack with a Kamerman when you go second. That can be kind of the tempo swing you need.
It's an advantage on both sides. Usually the player going first gets the opportunity to Lost Mine before the opponent, but if you're taking those knockouts with Spit Innocently, lots of times it becomes a resource war between having Kamerman up and then transitioning that slowly into Sableye. Brennan is going to Nest Ball. He'll be able to search the deck for any basic Pokemon, and as a seasoned player himself, making sure all the resources are in the deck and available. When you're playing a deck that's got specific energy counts, you want to always make sure you're not making that mistake of playing something like Mirage Gate and there's no energy available in your deck, or extra searching cards when a Pokemon is prized. It will just be that Comfey being benched. Does have a pretty solid hand in return, but
we're spinning
deciding to, oh no, that's not what you want to see. Chorus hitting the discard pile, as well as one of those water energy, not as detrimental, but was it really worth discarding Chorus to get one of your energy recycler?
And now Brennan looking at playing a Lost Vacuum just to make sure that Jesper doesn't get access to the Pokestop. Does get you 2 cards into the Lost Zone as well. But,
smart choice to hold off on that, though. Wants to just see more cards, have more options. It will be the Flower Selecting, and I mean, Kyogre's not a card that's great in this matchup, but it's one of the things that, like, if you have access to it, it does give you a line of play. I know Caleb and Azul were talking at this some point when they were playing that mirror match out, but Brennan understands I'm going to want to have cards like Chorus, like a Roxanne. There are 2 Chorus in that hand, so it looks like it was just between a Chorus and the Kyogre, so it makes sense that was the choice. Jesper kicking things off. Does does have a Colress's Experiment of his own,
Yep.
and that will be the first card to play. We haven't really talked about it a lot, but there sort of is like this universal accepted sequencing method at this point that usually, if you have the resources, goes you concealed cards first, then you Colress, and then you flower selecting. But with no Greninja, it will be a Colress to kick off the turn. What are the choices between this? Lots of important resources. Wow, that is a big-time deal. Jesper did not check the prize cards to know that the other two Giratina are in the prize cards and now is left with none in the deck.
Ooh, tough choice there. 2 battle VIP passes off of the flower selecting, not bad. Yeah, I mean, in some matchups, this would be devastating to throw away a Giratina and have the other two prized. If you noticed in the first game, Jesper had Giratina V in hand and just never put it down. So I think the way he's approaching this matchup is to treat all of the cards that say Giratina in his deck like they don't exist, and he's hoping to just send them to the lost zone. So it may not be a big deal. Maybe you're just trying to attack with Kamerman, Sableye, Radiant Greninja, and hope that that's good enough. But we'll see. One of the things I've been noticing with these Giratina decks is, they tend not to run Lost Vacuum, and that really is a key to get to Sableye one turn faster. And so it does feel like these kind of turbo Lost Zone decks that are playing multiple copies of Lost Vacuum do have an advantage in these matchups because they're able to consistently get out Sableye and use Lost Mine faster than the Giratina deck would.
We'll see how it pays off. Does decide to just grab the Comfey and Cramorant. Not sure if there's a way to get Greninja into this hand. Does have the Jet Energy, so will want to utilize it. It's Comfey's best friend. Allows it to pivot into the active spot and have the energy on to retreat. Another flower selecting. Jesper not choosing to keep the Roxanne right away. That seems like, at least in my mind, a choice of a card that you want. It's a great advantage in this mirror match to make sure that you pretty much try to shut down Sableye as much as possible. And I think making the smart choice, getting rid of that path.
I think he's wondering if he should put out Path to the Peak to shut off Brennan's Radiant Greninja. Decides to stick with the Roxanne instead. But yeah, seeing that your opponent has already played a Stadium and played a Lost Vacuum, you could look at this and say, I'm going to just shut off concealed cards, and maybe that disrupts Brennan enough to give me an advantage, but Jesper valuing the Roxanne instead. But it is a tough choice.
It is a little bit tough for sure. Manaphy will be the choice of selection off the Nest Ball. And now what else can Jesper do? He's already had 4 cards in the Lost Zone, and honestly, what more do you need to do? You've got Kamerman online. The pivot can be used of this Jet Energy to retreat. First prize this time going to Jesper, taking the knockout with Spit innocently. And Brennan now is the one left with no Comfey in play this game number 2.
Yeah, going second pays off in this one. Jesper is able to get the turn 1 attack with the Cramorant, so hey, everything going according to plan in this one. But yeah, the awkward thing in this matchup is the Giratina deck is kind of playing like the Lost Zone deck, but with 6 cards you never want to put into play. Now, that being said, it still is a close matchup. It still can just come down to who gets to Sableye faster, who's doing the most efficient attacks quickly. But yeah, it always feels bad. You're like, oh yeah, I'm playing Lost Zone Giratina, except in this matchup, I'm just playing Lost Zone.
Colress being played will get rid of a Switch Cart and Nest Ball, so those resources no longer on the table. And that's just going to be it. Nothing else being played. Spit innocently taking the knockout. Now, what potential openings are available for Jesper at this point?
Yeah, Jesper's hand isn't great either. There's a lot of cards in there, but he needs to find something off this, I think.
2 Giratina V-Star.
I don't think that's what he's looking for.
Listen, it was something. I don't know if it was what he was looking for at this point.
Positive, put a Giratina V-Star in the Lost Zone. Negative, put a Giratina V-Star into his hand.
Kind of just canceled itself out. It's just like, yeah, I upticked my count by 1. That's kind of what happens.
Yeah. I can't tell. He might have a Colress's Experiment in hand, which would be very good this turn.
I think it's the Roxanne, that hyper rare. And
well, there's a Colress.
It's another 2 choice. He's had 3 of those these games. Battle Pass, Giratina V-Star, and now the one that you want the least, the Colress's Experiment.
Yeah, 3 pairs. That's amazing.
Another tough choice here. I think the easy choice is, do you really want this Comfey at this point? I feel like you can afford to get rid of that extra one. You are playing cards like Super Rod to shuffle these back in. Is he considering getting rid of another Colress? Don't tell me.
I don't think so. This is a tough 5 cards to look at, though. You got to be thinking, what is your attack this turn? There's one Mirage Gate. You've already used your Kamerman. Currently, there's no way to power up Radiant Greninja. I think that would be a fine attack this turn. Just use Moonlight Shuriken, hit 2 things for 90 damage. That sets you up later for Sableye Lost Mine. But without a second Mirage Gate or another energy card, you're really not attacking this turn. So we're going to see another Comfey come down, and I think a switch or an escape rope. And I think this flower selecting needs to find an energy or a Mirage Gate.
Big 2 cards for Jesper. It is the energy card.
There you go.
We'll have to put that cross switcher away to the Lost Zone. The question is, what is your attacker of choice? You've got 9 cards in the Lost Zone. Does that put you to 10? I think you're still 1 short, though, from being able to Lost Mine.
Yep.
What is your choice of attacker? I mean, Radiant Greninja does exist, so if there is something like a Mirage Gate in hand, which there is, then is there ever a world where you just go for that play, put some damage on the board, and hope it doesn't get healed off a switch card to finish off later with Lost Mine?
Yeah, I think so. It sets up some pretty good Lost Mine attacks on the future turns, so may as well go for it. Yeah, it's a little bit of an awkward attack to do at this stage of the game. You know, usually when you're doing this, you're trying to knock out a Comfey or I don't know, do something bigger than this. But because you have Sableye to just drop damage counters wherever you want later, I mean, this is doing 180 total damage, so it is still a pretty big attack to pull off this turn.
Putting damage on the board can finish things off later. Looking at Brennan's list, there's no way to disrupt the hand. Oh, actually, 1 copy of Roxanne. So if you leave damage on the board, sometimes it becomes a game back and forth with Sableye to try and play around the other players' Roxannes. And there it is, Moonlight Shuriken, 90 damage to 2 of Brennan's Pokemon. What is the top deck for turn? What is the options available? There is a Nest Ball in hand as well as this Artisan. Do you just pretty much give yourself that option? And speaking of which, does also have Colress.
Yep.
I think just debating, do you want to play this Colress right now, or do you wait to maybe use something like concealed cards or search these basic Pokemon out first? And it will be the choice of Colress. Easy choice in this battle pass, and the question is, do you want to keep some of these resources like Echoing Horn or the Comfey, or do you prioritize the energy cards that are going to be there as pivoting options and cards to discard with concealed cards?
Yep. Echoing Horn can be a powerful way to kind of steal a game later on. Just pull out another low HP Pokemon from the discard pile. But is this a situation where Brennan wants to hold on to it? Sometimes you just got to let go and accept that it's more of a dream in this kind of a situation. But no, Brennan saying, okay, I think I can weave this in later on and figure out a way to use Echoing Horn. So hold on to it.
So interesting that with no Comfey down in board, it was the choice to value that Echoing Horn over putting this Comfey into play. Is there ever a world where Brennan just doesn't go for the strategy of putting low HP Pokemon? It feels inevitable that you're going to have to put those into play, right?
Yeah. Seems pretty tough. I think there is an escape rope in hand. But, oh, there is the Echoing Horn.
Oh, so this is actually interesting. With this Echoing Horn, the bench is now locked for Jesper, which means there's no way to put down something like Sableye, and this can happen in this matchup where if you can just Lost Mine over and over and over again, there are 5 pretty easy prizes on Jesper's board, a total of 390 HP. You can achieve that over a few turns of Lost Mine.
Yeah, the big thing is it really negates a lot of the advantage that came from using Moonlight Shuriken. Jesper's going to have to just attack into something and knock it out, and it's kind of going to waste a lot of that damage that was done last turn. So yeah, that was a huge play from Brennan. You know, we're obviously in a world where there's no scoop up net. There's no way to kind of just easily pick up your bench Pokemon. We don't usually see Penny being played in these decks. So yeah, once your bench is full, you're stuck.
You are locked in for the ride, and there's nothing you can do to change it. First, Mirage Gate being played. This will allow this Greninja to retreat, and I mean, another great thing as well is Brennan can just not even be forced to Lost Mine this turn. Can you spit innocently into this Greninja, hit it for 110 damage, and pretty much set the math up to beyond par with what Sableye would do this turn as well. I mean, you're going to get to a point where everything's going to sort of have 6 damage counters on it, setting up perfect math, and Greninja will be one of those exceptions. And the question in my mind now is, can Jesper take 5 prize cards before Brennan spreads 390 damage on the board? I don't know if it's possible, especially with no way to disrupt Brennan's hand if he's not going to take these prize cards until the same exact turn.
It's very true. I guess we'll just have to see how Jesper decides to play this one. It's kind of awkward. You're probably just going to be attacking with Kamerman a lot and just spit innocently. Take your 1 prize card every turn and hope it's enough. This could be one of those situations where, the switch cards can come in handy. If you can play enough of them, heal off enough damage, potentially that disrupts the Sableye plan. I think one of the awkward parts is that at some point you can see a world where Brennan gets to a spot where it spreads enough damage and then knocks out like Manaphy plus 3 other Pokemon, and then finishes it off with like Radiant Greninja later. So you can, not quite go for the full sweep, but I don't know, this one's going to be interesting. Jesper does seem to be in a very, very difficult situation. It's one of those spots where you wish that you could just like knock out one of your own Pokemon and be like, look, I'll give you a prize for it. Just let me get this off the board.
I'll do what you want, but give me my reward.
Look, I'll even give you 2 prizes. Just let me get this thing off my board.
Okay, 2 might be a little extreme. Two, we might be playing with fire a little bit. Jesper's list is only playing 2 copies of Switch Card. So with that in mind, you've got to wonder. So Sableye over the next 4 turns can deal out 480 damage. 60 healed is not enough. You're still hitting that 390 number. I mean, I guess the best play that Jesper can do is target down Manaphy consistently. Play things like Boss's Orders to take knockouts and force Brennan every turn to bring something back with Super Rod. If you do that, then you can open up plays to take 2 prize card turns with your Radiant Greninja because Brennan can't knock it out because then it gives you the bench slot to put Sableye into play.
Yeah, the other thing is you can just keep knocking out Sableye every turn and force Brennan to keep getting it back.
Same situation, right? Different name, same
situation. And we do see Super Rod. That was an awkward flower selecting. It was Super Rod and Sableye, so that's one more, or at least 1 Super Rod heading to the discard pile. That's a crucial resource. There are 3 in the deck, so still plenty of opportunities. Yeah, I think Brennan's going to have to attack with Sableye 4 times to win the game. So it's just going to be a matter of, can you, like, Super Rod, I don't think there's any Clara in this one, but can you get it back enough times to just lost mine repeatedly?
Escape rope being played, I think it's always correct to send Comfey up. I think you're pretty much aware of what your opponent's going for. They sacrifice last turn to just deal some damage onto your board. Going to try and Sableye over and over and over again. If this works out how Brennan wants, this is a masterclass for why Sableye is so powerful against low HP Pokemon.
Another Super Rod.
Wow, another choice that's very tough. And the big problem here, oh, look, there's actually 1 more Comfey. So establishing this board to just set up 3 Comfey, use this last flower selecting. And no matter what this card is, there's 1 more escape rope in the, or rather, there's an energy card in the hand, so this can retreat out and finally getting an easy choice in that battle VIP pass to throw away. And Brennan's hit step 1 of the strategy. Also, next turn with the way this hand works out, can play the Roxanne as a draw supporter to get some more cards because Jesper's in a position where he can't not take prize cards because then Sableye gets more value, spreads more damage counters, and at that point puts him even closer to losing this game and forcing a game 3.
Yeah, if you're Jesper, I mean, you don't feel good about this situation at all. You know that your opponent has complete control of the game, but this is it. You're down a game. It's not like you can concede this one, so you just got to play it out and hope that your opponent misses or messes something up. What else can you do?
I think 6 and 6 here on Comfey is, or 6 on Manaphy, 6 on Comfey is probably the best. You could put some counters on Kamerman. There is always an awkward situation where something goes astray in your plan and you have to sort of abandon ship on your Sableye play. So if you're going to want to Lost Mine knock out these Pokemon at some point later on in the game, you might as well put guaranteed damage counters on there. And it is the choice to put 2, 2, and 2. I know sort of when the format rotated, we had this discussion of, okay, when you Lost Mine a Pokemon and take a knockout and you have 5 damage counters to put, where do you put them? I feel like it's always been, at least at this point, correct to just put 5 on a Pokemon since you can't switch cart and heal it off. It's a little bit harder to do that, but that is the choice for Brennan. Very clearly, though, setting up his play to map out these 5 prize cards. It's going to be on 3 of these Comfey, the Manaphy, and the Greninja. And I didn't even think about this at this point. There is that first switch card, and the question is, does Jesper have access to the other one? This is also only healing 20 damage off this active Pokemon, so it is just another 10 damage, and every damage counter matters in this Lost Zone Mirror match. Spit innocently, taking a knockout onto Sableye. Like we said, a few of these resources are now gone. There is one of those Super Rods in the Lost Zone. None of the prize cards, so that won't be an issue. And it's a bad sign for Jesper when you see your opponent pulling these resources out. It actually might be the energy recycler we saw found before. I think the question now is, if you're Brennan, do you want to play this first and then play the Roxanne? I believe Jesper is now at 3 prize cards, so.
Yeah, I think it depends on if you have a Mirage Gate in hand. One of the awkward things still is that, you know, it's not free for you to be able to attack with Sableye every turn. You don't have like a free retreating pivot. And the way Brennan's board had to work out, had to put down an extra Comfey and does not have an extra Sableye, you know, ready on the bench to promote turn after turn. So it will be an extra step now. Every turn going to need to find, you know, a switching card or a Mirage Gate or something like that in order to get Sableye into the active spot, powered up with an energy card. I think the first one's going to be pretty easy to pull off. Is just as we go along, what's going to happen from there.
So as this game progresses, Jesper will inch closer and closer. I believe is now at 3 prize cards left, so one step closer, 3 turns away from winning, but it's a race against the clock. Brennan having an excellent start, does find that psychic energy off of this, and here is going to be a solid combo. Switch card, and I think is debating not even playing this Roxanne since he has maybe the guaranteed Sableye this turn, can then save that in hand, maybe bluff a little bit to Jesper that, hey, I've got nothing going on in my hand, I'm okay. Maybe you can go for a riskier target play as we will start to see these Comfey, like I said, hit this 6 damage counter mark, put them oh so close to being knocked out. Now there's nothing like Hawlucha in Brennan's deck, that's not an option, but it will just be Lost Mine. And here we go, 3 Pokemon, 4 Pokemon at that matter, hitting the max. And I think next turn the game can just end, right? You can put 3 damage counters onto these Comfey, or rather put the damage counters on the Comfey and the Greninja, as well as the Manaphy, and that will be the 5 prize cards that Brennan needs to win this game.
Yeah, it's not looking good for Jesper. Yeah, I mean, the beauty of Sableye's Lost Mine is you get to put 12 damage counters wherever you want. It doesn't go on one Pokemon. You don't have to put, you know, 12 split up between 2. You can put them wherever. So you can set up for big turns like this where you're knocking out 5 Pokemon at once. I mean, this game was played beautifully by Brennan. Just that echoing horn was the difference maker.
The MVP. Yeah. And that's sort of a conversation I've had with some players that they tell me in early rounds of these regional championships when they're playing these mirrors, this is how they're winning games. Right. And it's not a fault of Jesper, but sometimes you can't play around it. And here we go. Final turn. Are the pieces there? Super Rod is the big one. Finds the Super Rod, can put back both of these Sableye and the energy. Yep. And there's going to be a flower selecting and a Roxanne to try and get there.
Yeah, the Artizone did get countered, so we don't have that, you know, instant way to put Sableye onto the bench. So Jesper recognizing that countering the stadium was a big deal here. But yeah, there's not that many cards left in Brennan's deck. With the Roxanne, you're going to draw 6, and you flower selecting, you're going to look at 2 more. You got to imagine. And the worst part is you don't even need to win this turn. You have 2 turns to pull this off.
Now, the question that I have is, with Roxanne and Escape Rope, is it ever just correct to play the Roxanne first and give yourself that out? I will just sort of get 2 useless cards. I mean, you can kind of throw this Raikou away into the Lost Zone. And I mean, I guess this is a fine play. You play this Escape Rope, you go into the Comfey, and I think you just play the Roxanne first and flower selecting. I think it's just better to play that and just give yourself the out after. I mean, Colress is pretty much doing not the same thing. It's a little bit better, but maybe just not good enough.
Here is the Roxanne. So, you know, this was a huge comeback card when it first came out. You can only play it when your opponent has 3 or fewer prize cards remaining. Makes both players shuffle in their hands. You draw 6, your opponent only draws 2 cards. Can be a very devastating card. And Brennan has kind of manipulated this situation very well. Jesper also does play Roxanne, but because Brennan has delayed...
I think that's I think that's it, though. He's got the energy card and the Sableye. The Mirage Gate can find out the water energy. Brennan tying things up with an excellent Sableye maneuver. We're going to game 3 here in round 7.
Oh, no, that's it. Brennan wins.
Oh, Brennan wins. My bad. He won.
Yeah,
I forgot he won game 1.
Brennan Kamerman is going to join, I think, his brother Owen in day 2
look at that.
of the World Championship. So huge accomplishment for Brennan. Congratulations. Getting to that 6th win. A masterclass in echoing horn and Sableye tricks. Yeah. But yeah, that was it. Brennan wins.
I wanted to see more Pokemon. I let myself down there.